have all of the tools in their hands to know what to do, where to do it, when to do it. And that really created the need for software. So I'm a big believer in beginning with the end in mind. It's pretty much my thought process. And it was not for an exit in a software business at the time when I got started. It was 2007. I was just really eager to grow this landscaping business. And I ultimately, had an idea in mind that one day that business would sell, but I was never really trying to build a business to sell. I was just building a business that would be really profitable each year, something that I would really enjoy doing, something that would give me the freedom to live the life that I had in mind and have a really good purpose day to day, somewhere where I could go to work and share my time with people that I wanted to spend my time with. It was so simple off the start. It wasn't really built to sell. But to answer your question, it was probably 2016 when I started to really think about enterprise value on the software business itself, because it had started to grow, and I had started spending more and more time around tech incubators. I started to really try to learn how to be a tech CEO, which was very different than what I had been doing running the landscaping company. It was around that time that I started to think about the actual value of focusing on building the software company.
Yeah, nice. You're building the software company, and then when does it get, so you're building, I guess, with an end in mind at that stage, kind of whether it's version 2.0 or the software or whatever it look like. But what time does then it get real, the considerations get stronger? I mean, I know that there's certain benchmarks that when you're selling a software company specifically, but we can talk about any type of business because, there's multiples of EBITDA and calculations and all that kind of stuff. But where do you start looking to prime the business for sale? And does that change your strategy for operations? And I'm just curious if you have some thoughts on that.
Sometimes people over-rotate thinking about selling a business, and they try to optimize every metric, and they hyper-fixate on optimizing metrics, and they forget to do the right thing for the employees and the customers in the process. And I think that ends up inevitably hurting the business. And when that happens, I think it's very hard to get that back. And so for me, what I really tried to focus on all the way from the day I started the company right through to the day that I sold it was just truly solving problems for the customers and really just building great people that could solve those problems, and then just making sure that those people were really treated well in the process. And I think throughout the preparation for sale, which I would say for me was about 4 years, it was around 2020 when we started to really consider that this business would be sold at some point in the next 5 to 7 years. And so from that point forward, I was more cognizant around the mix between investment in the product and long-term investments and short-term investments. And what I really tried to focus on was solving the outstanding problems that I knew our customers were facing without over-investing in the business to the point where it's not profitable. And I wanted to really focus on growth, which we should naturally always be focused on, but I wanted to do it in as efficient way as possible. So I wasn't testing marketing tactics that were, unlikely to work or risky. I really started to do what I found was working really well between 2017 and 2020, and just trying to do that very much in a disciplined way, in a way where I knew that the metrics would make sense, where the cost of acquiring customers was well balanced to the lifetime value of those customers. And then I really just focused on building out an executive team that could run the business the way I had found it to work best. And so we were always still optimizing, and we were heavily investing still in product more than ever because we had more money to invest. But it was just a really disciplined way of doing things so that the EBITDA was nice and strong, the growth rate was nice and strong, the retention rate of the customers was actually the most important factor for me, and then really just making sure that I built people that could go through a merger or an acquisition or a sale and continue to run the business and serve the customers and build great products without me. And that was really my focus.
If I'm putting a bumper sticker on that, like to me, kind of the thought process in my head pops in is as I would deem it, cut the head off the snake. Make sure that you're optimizing your business to run itself or with new leadership when it's sold, so that there's not this vacuum for the customer when the leader that founded it exits the business.
That's a difficult thing to do with any founder operated business is to truly replace yourself in every area of the business to the point where it truly doesn't need you. And then I think for us, the operational side was relatively easy to duplicate in the software business. And that was easy because I was never there day to day operating the business. So I built the business with other people operating all of the functional areas of the business, like marketing and sales and finance and customer experience and customer support and software development. All of these things were being managed or completely operated by others. And so for me, I was looking at metrics and putting my 2 cents in like any CEO should. But ultimately, these people were now creating strategy, and they were then executing on that strategy and then monitoring the health in their area of the business for years. And so really what they were doing was aligning strategy to my strategy as the CEO of what we were going to do on the macro. And then they were really just running their game on their own. So the hardest part that was, I think, difficult to truly replicate was my impact on building a brand for the company itself. And so, as a CEO, I was spending probably half of my time just building partnerships and building brand. And I think that is a difficult thing sometimes to replace systematically. So you're always trying to find more people who have that same craft. And that is a craft that I think a lot of people overlook, is a CEO really spending time out with customers, spending time with industry partners, spending time with the employees that are building the company, and just pulling everybody together and getting them to really understand what the strategy of the company is, what the why is of the company, and then just motivating people to want to be a part of it. And that's always been the hardest thing to replace, I think.
Just for clarity purposes there, when you said, you spent half your time building the brand, are you, by that, do you mean like you being the face of the brand and you really marketing it? I mean, you have a specific expertise in your industry that a lot of people don't hold. For the listeners who don't know Mark, he's like unbelievably accomplished in the landscape industry and would be considered, definitely within the top 10 of the, I don't want to use the word guru of landscaping, but you'd be like, oh, fucking guru, but I mean, really, like you have this, intelligence and awareness around this industry that is definitely unique. So is that what you mean by that? Is
like, in my case, I built software to solve a problem for myself. And so I wasn't a software engineer. I didn't decide to build software for the whole world. I just decided to build software to allow my landscape company to scale. And so most of what was built around a need that I specifically had. And I created my own management operating system for landscaping because there wasn't one. And In my nuclear career, I had learned about lean and started to really learn all of the lean principles. And then as I started to build my landscape company, all of those lean principles became something that I needed to create a system to allow me to do at scale. And landscaping is a fully remote business. You know, people show up at the shop or your yard in the morning and they hop in trucks and they disappear for the day, and they either get work done efficiently or they don't. And so the software that I built was really a system to allow other people to work efficiently that I created out of a need. And that was a paper system for many years. We're talking like old, triplicate forms and duplicate. And the system was nothing more than a pile of paper every day. And I decided I wanted to make that paperless. And really, I think when I went to start selling the software, I had to really share with people the logic and the thought behind the system and why running your business this way would make sense and how it's going to impact the revenue per hour and the profitability and allow you to pay higher wages and service your customers better. And so I was always sort of teaching people the business philosophy behind the software. I didn't really need to spend a lot of time teaching someone how to use software. I had a whole team of people to do that. There's 70 employees in the company that teach people how to onboard and then utilize the software. That was never difficult. That was easy to replace. But teaching people how the philosophy came to be and how to run the business this way, that was really where I focused my time.
The vision side of it.
Yeah, that was always the hard part.
Yeah. Well, and I think that this is a really good part of the conversation. I was going to bring up lean because I know you're a massive fan of lean, and for the listeners, I think some of the pieces I'm kind of gleaning from what Mark is saying here is first off, there's going to be the largest transfer of wealth is going to occur in the next 10, 15 years probably, you think? We talked about this last night actually at dinner. Wouldn't you say probably 10 or 15, 20 years?
I think the next 10 to 20 years, it's going to be incredible to see what happens between businesses and real estate turning over. I think there's just going to be an incredible opportunity for sure.
Yeah, and what we're talking about, guys, is the baby boomers who have businesses out there, people that are kind of in their 55, 60 years old and onward, who are looking to either sell their business. So this conversation applies to people who are either selling or on the other side buying. And so, if you have a business, you're prepping a business, or you're thinking about buying a business, at this stage, I think myself, and we've done lots of startups and we've done lots of acquisitions in our history. I don't even know why you would do a startup. There's so much available to go out there and buy and then optimize with technology as well as this rolls out, because people who are older don't want to go through that, brain damage of it's a next evolution, right? It's, like you just said, Mark 4.0. And it's this is another, Susie 3.0 or 4.0 or whatever it is. It's getting your business ready to implement technology is going to be a bit of a lift.
And we're seeing this in every industry, really. I would say right now there's kind of two things colliding. There is a very large group of people from the boomers that are ready to retire. They're just at that age. And they're not really as interested in creating tech-enabled businesses. And I kind of believe that every business is more or less becoming a tech business in one way, shape, or another, or at least a tech-enabled business, because all of these traditional businesses that exist in the world operated at probably 60% of the actual efficiency opportunity that existed, just simply because of a lack of information. Now, back in the 80s and 90s, that was probably 40% of the actual opportunity. Think, back then, if you needed to make a phone call, you stopped at a phone booth. And if someone wasn't sitting next to the phone, then you left a voicemail on a recorder. And the next time they got there, they listened to that message. Well, that could be 2 days before you get an answer. And then fast forward, the internet age comes in, and now we're using BlackBerry Messenger or email or text or iMessage. And so answers started happening faster. So I think that was a huge impact on just about every business. And, that did change what was the boomer era, I think, incredibly. And they very much adapted to that. But really embedding workflows into the software or into a business where software was now dictating what needed to happen next and automating the next step and communicating with customers automatically and creating appointments automatically. The idea of doing that in a business for many boomers just was overwhelming. They just couldn't understand how to do it, so they didn't. And I think what's happening now is those companies that have done that are growing much, much faster. So we're seeing consolidation in just about every industry, and we're seeing a lot of private equity investors coming into industries that aren't so sexy, that traditionally would have never even crossed their mind, because they can see that now they can be tech-enabled businesses. They can be data-driven. Everything can be measured. Everybody can actually contribute the way that they're expected to contribute, because they can see what winning looks like. And you're seeing this in every business, whether it's a fast food restaurant doing their training for their staff at home before they ever even show up for work, or whether it's a traditional company like landscaping, being able to dispatch a crew without ever talking to them. A month at a time, they could be out doing their work, and they're really not coming back for any information. They might be getting some feedback from a manager once a week, but generally speaking, they're looking at their phone and they're just doing what they're supposed to do. They know how long they're supposed to be there. They know what they're supposed to do when they get there. When they update what they do, that automatically tells accounting what to invoice. And then when accounting approves it, that automatically invoices a customer, and that automatically collects a payment. Years ago, that was a business owner doing every one of those
Somebody
steps.
was driving around in a truck dropping off an invoice.
The businesses just couldn't scale, right? And they certainly couldn't work efficiently. But when you take all of that away and you automate it all, the business becomes really attractive. There's much more profit. There's much higher wages for the staff, better customer service, better controls. And so the businesses are a lot more attractive, I think. So that's why we're seeing private equity coming into these traditional businesses that in the past just couldn't be systemized. And now they're so valuable because they're systemizable. And I think that's created an incredible opportunity for those people selling, because they're worth something now. And in the past, they really weren't. Once they were gone, the business was gone. And now, unless they found somebody from within or a competitor that maybe wanted to scale up, it was hard to sell a lot of these businesses. And now on the flip side, for the people buying, I think there's an incredible opportunity as well, because if there's businesses out there who just aren't willing to adopt technology, well, all of the things I just said become opportunity. So whether you're an individual or a big private equity firm, finding these companies and tech-enabling them and just changing a few little things changes everything on the growth rate, changes everything on the profitability. And now these businesses, I think, are creating a new economy, a very different economy. And I think we need to really embrace that. Like the service industry is real in North America. I mean, that's what we have as a service industry.
What we do, right?
Yeah.
That's everywhere you look. I'm strongly urging our listeners to heed some of this advice. If you have a business, you need to be looking at your business and saying, am I tech enabling it? Am I preparing to tech enable it? Am I studying, learning, spending time on educating myself to understand the options? And jump in here as I'm kind of trying to recast what you said there, and say, hey, someday you're going to sell your business, or someday you're going to hand it down to your kids, or there's going to be some type of transference of your business. And if you want to maximize the value of it as you're driving or sitting or working out while you're listening to this conversation, you need to be really considering, where is your business in a tech-enabled position, and like on a scale from 1 to 10, I always try to break things down. Where are you? If you're a 1, there's lots of opportunity for you. And if you're a 1, there are a lot of predators out there that are preparing to take you out. Not maybe you specifically, but in the industry, you will get taken out. And so this is a critical time frame, and this is why I kind of wanted to have this conversation, because it was beginning of the year. It's like there's a lot of things I kind of would love to talk about with you, and we're on a bit of a timeline here today. But so I mean, that's kind of. Do you agree with kind of my clarity on that?
Yeah, wholeheartedly. I think what the big opportunity that I think most people are not seeing in their own businesses is just if they actually focused on optimizing the financial outcome, if they optimize the focus on growing people who can replace themselves, if they've got the happiest customers, if they've really truly optimized the customer experience in whatever they do for that customer, they're doing it better than everybody else in their specific business, and you found a way to do that more efficient than anybody else in your industry, then you've got the most valuable business that you could possibly have in that business. And I think what generally this day and age creates that optimization in all 4 categories is technology. So when you use software that helps you see in real time the data needed to optimize the financial perspective of a business, the people perspective, the customer perspective, and the efficiency, when you can see all of those metrics, when you understand whether things are going better or going worse, and you can just pinpoint where to solve problems, you really optimize the business. And that's what technology is meant to do. It's just meant to provide real-time information to optimize our performance and minimize waste. That's generally what, when we build software, that's what it does. And I think when you deploy it, if you deploy it right, and your business is optimized as a result, it's usually worth a lot more money than when you do things the old school way. And so if you're buying businesses, look for businesses that haven't tech-enabled, because they're going to sell very cheap for what they are. And you can create massive enterprise value just by tech-enabling that business, and then perhaps putting a few businesses together that haven't been optimized. And that type of consolidation, the private equity world calls it a roll-up strategy. If you get 3 or 4 or 5 of these companies that are never going to go ahead and do this on their own, and they're ready to retire, and you put them together, I think that's kind of a gift to the world, in the sense that you've taken some existing businesses that clearly offer value to the customers they serve, the communities they're a part of, and the employees, and you're optimizing those businesses to make them better, to create better service for those customers, to create a more successful livelihood for the workers in the company. And when you eliminate all that waste and turn that into an improvement, and you roll those companies together and do it really mindfully, then you're creating a better outcome for humanity. And I truly believe that a lot of people that focus on building software are focused on making life better for people.
Agreed. Do you mind, of one of those 4 categories, your choice, can we just, one of the things that I, kind of want to, I get concerned about is that, the listener who's driving, who goes, because if they knew how to optimize, they'd optimize, right? But they get stuck in their headspace of, well, I don't know how, and I'm not, this is not me, I'm not a tech person, I'm not, whatever story that they create. could you just frame some examples of any one of those, whether it's customer service, sales, the HR side of things, whichever one you choose, but just maybe frame some examples of what optimization looks like, because as you were talking, like I was thinking customer service, it's like, well, what are the things that can be done with software that can help, whether it's a restaurant or a car repair place, landscape business, or anything.
That's what I love about metrics. Metrics take the emotional response out of the business and really kind of create a rational response. And so everybody, we all think that our business and the segment or the customer type or the nature of the business is completely unique. And there are a lot of attributes to our businesses that are unique. But when you look at businesses from a metrics perspective, most are pretty similar. And so I call it a balanced scorecard. And basically that balanced scorecard, every business on earth or business school is probably going to teach you a balanced scorecard in one shape or another. But the way I like to look at it is there's a financial perspective to the business, which is the financials, right? I want to know gross profit, net profit. I want to understand my growth rate. I want to understand my top line sales. I want to know how much revenue I'm producing in each department or each service that I've got. And so those are just financial metrics, which every business on earth has to have because we have to do our taxes. And so I think people look at those metrics too infrequently most times, and they just don't really understand the metrics. So they just let the tax preparing person look at the numbers once a year, give them something, and they're not really using the financials as a tool. And so I always try to think for small business owners, learn how to use your financials to actually improve the business. Don't look at it like something you have to do. Look at it like something you get to do so that you understand the business better. So there's that perspective, which is the financial. The next perspective that I like to really look at is people. And sometimes that gets called a learning perspective, or sometimes it's a people perspective. Different balanced scorecards will have different terms. For me, that perspective, the metrics I want to look at my employee turnover rate. I want to look at my training rate. So how many hours of training have we done? What's the training completion rate on the training programs that we've set up to develop staff? I want to look at my employee net promoter score. So I'm going to run some surveys, and that's called ENPS. I want to know, are my employees happy? And if they're not happy, I want to know that, because that's going to be a problem. And retention is always, sort of the number one metric that I'm looking at. And if I've got turnover and I've got low ENPS, either in one department or maybe the whole company, then I know where to look. If the whole company is suffering, that's a much bigger problem than if I've got one department that has low employee health. Then I know it's probably something happening with that manager or with the way that we're deploying the work or what our expectations are for that group. And so I want to really understand those key metrics so that I can make better decisions as it relates to employees. And again, when we're optimizing a business for sale or even analyzing a business, I'm just looking at these same metrics, and so is everybody that's actually buying. So I need to know how to optimize these components in order to make the business valuable. But I don't do it for that. I do it because I want happy customers and I want happy employees. It's nothing to do with, like, the sale is a byproduct of running a great company. Great companies are worth a lot of money, just like everything else in the world.
Yeah. How do we simplify this for, I'm picturing, somebody who's got a business that's got 2-3 million in revenue, maybe even only $1 million in revenue, maybe sub $1 million in revenue. And they're like, oh yeah, this is great for you guys. You have bigger businesses, or, I wonder, like, how can we make this executable for them as they're listening to it, so it's not so fearful or doesn't seem so grandiose? Because sometimes, you rhymed off a lot of things there, and somebody who's not doing any of them is like, oh my God, like that's impossible for me to do. Is, many people would be saying that, I think, right now. So how can somebody just simplify this as much as possible? One of the things I was thinking about was like, you don't have to do all those things in 1 year either. You could do 1 or 2, but I flip it to you.
The reason I like a balanced scorecard is because I tend to try to fix things in each of the 4 areas each quarter. So taking it back to like actionable items, I'm going to try to optimize something on the financials, something on the people. I'm going to try to optimize the customer experience and our efficiency. So those are the four parts of a balanced scorecard. Every quarter, I'm going to just set some goals to improve a couple of things in each area of the business. And if I do it very balanced, I'm going to optimize the financial outcome. I'm going to optimize the people, the customers, and the efficiency a little bit at a time. Then we get really good over a long period of time. But I think what many of us small business owners, I started out as a very small business, all of my effort would go into operations. And when you just keep hyper-focusing on operations or operations and customers, then you don't really put enough effort into optimizing the financial outcome. Or maybe you're not putting enough effort into growing people. And I think most small business owners hyper-focus on customer needs because they're the loud people in the room. And then they focus on getting the work done, but they forget to grow people and they forget to optimize the financial metrics. So the simple solution for me is pick 2 or 3 metrics in each of those 4 areas of your business to understand. And the metrics sometimes sound scary to people. And it certainly did to me when I got started. Metrics just on its own.
Just the word on its own.
Just the word,
That's what
right?
I was thinking, actually.
And it's so crazy because all I'm really talking about is on the financial business or side of the business, what are your sales? And every business owner knows what their sales are. What's your gross profit and what's your net profit? And if you know those things, then you've got things dialed. But don't know them once a month. Know them every week. What is our sales target weekly? What is our gross profit margin expected to be? And do we know how to price whatever it is that we're selling or whatever service we're providing to get that margin consistently? And so I always say, once you've got that one piece, I can measure my sales. I know that my pricing delivers the right gross profit. And I know that I can manage my overhead expenses to end up with a net profit. Like getting that right, that financial piece, that's number 1. Then number 2, I want to grow people. And so in order to grow people, I just want to make sure that I'm hiring enough people. I know how many people I'm going to need this year. And then I know that I'm actually doing some training with those people so that they can truly do anything that I was doing to service the customer or build the product or provide a service without me being there. And that training just has to be there in place. And so for the people, the 2 main metrics that I'd be concerned with are retention and training completions. And if you just kind of put a little basic spreadsheet together and you've got your financial metrics, those few, and just 2 metrics for people. Are we training them? And are they sticking around? I need to know that. The next one that I would put in place would be, are they happy? And if the business is getting a little bigger and you've got 20 employees, just doing a quarterly survey to say, are you happy? And them knowing that they can answer honestly and you're not going to know what they said, just that alone creates this transparency that I think most business owners need. And so a couple of things there. And then on the operational side, whatever business you're in, there's a cycle time. If I was running a coffee drive-through, I'd be concerned about how long people are waiting in line, right? And so that's going to be one of the leading indicators of whether or not we're serving our customers the way they expect. So I'm just going to worry about that one metric. If I'm out providing home cleaning services, I want to make sure that my staff that go to do the cleaning understand that they've got 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours at that particular home. And when they get there, I want them to know how long they should be there and when they leave. And so that's just estimated versus actual hours. And whether I'm mowing someone's lawn or washing their windows or cleaning their home, any home service basically, or any service in general, those employees just need to know how long should this take and how long did it take. And so again, that's an operational metric that everybody should just be aware of. And so it sounds scary, but it's not. And every business owner knows, hey, that should take an hour or that should take 3 hours. And I mean, even if you own a manufacturing company, it's really the same thing. How long should it take for us to build this component from the time it comes on the line till the time it comes off? And so those basic metrics, I think, are most important. And then with the customers, we want to look at just two main metrics. Are you retaining your customers? So what's that retention rate or turnover rate with your customers? And the only other metric that I'd be really concerned with is, are they actually happy? And so we have to survey them just like the employees to find out if they're happy. And then there's lots of other metrics that we can worry about later. But what I really gave you there was 4 financial metrics, 2 people metrics, 2 operational metrics, and 2 customer metrics. And everybody thinks about those things that I described in their business anyway. So why not just put a number to it and say, here's what I expect it to be. Here's what it is today. Here's how I'd like to improve it. And here's what I would love that metric to look like in the future. If my customer happiness is only a 40%, I know that's where I should be pointing my cannons. I got to be fixing customer happiness and finding out why they're unhappy. And so the metrics just tell me where to focus my effort. If I had really happy employees and really unhappy customers, then I'd put all my effort into fixing the customers. But if I had really happy customers and really unhappy employees, then I'd put my effort there, because if I don't, soon I'm going to have unhappy customers, right? And so right. These metrics, it's a balance. And I think when you've got just a few basic metrics that you're focused on, you're just actually kind of playing it almost like a symphony. You're just trying to make everything balance, and then you're just trying to improve things one day at a time. And the metrics just tell you what to improve.